As you know, we have a number of speakers this morning. The first is the Lama Zangmo, who first became a practicing Buddhist in 1977. She received teachings from many highly respected lamas and was inspired to enter a 4-year retreat in 1984, during which time she became a Buddhist nun. Shortly after finishing that retreat, she entered another 3 or 4 year retreat, and then another, finishing a period of lengthy retreats in 1993. She then became a teacher and was asked to help to run the Kagyu Center in London, which was opened in 1998, and since then has flourished under her guidance and leadership. Also in 1998, she was one of a group of nuns who went to India, where she became fully ordained as a Gelongma at a historic ceremony. And she has officiated in that capacity since. She's described as working tirelessly and joyfully in service to Dharma and helping others. And she became the first person in the UK to be honored with the title of Lama. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Lama Zangmo.
Thank you very much, and I would like to especially say thank you to Richard Carter for that very, very moving, beautiful sermon. It really, to me, epitomized this whole idea of transcendence, especially showing that cross. To me, transcendence is about what, certainly from the way we see it in Buddhism, is we all want to be happy. We share that. It doesn't matter which tradition we come from, which religion or no religion we come from. All of us share this inner longing and wish to be happy. We don't want to suffer. We want to transcend suffering. Transcendence, I was trying to think about what does it mean when this title of transcendence. So I can only think of it like this. This is what we share. All those shipwrecked in Lampedusa. Wherever we look in the world, there is suffering. There is pain. All different levels of it, all different degrees of it. As human beings, we suffer. Any living being is experiencing different degrees of suffering. And on our spiritual path, and in any whatever path we find ourselves on, that is what we strive to do, transcend suffering. And then we go about it in all different ways. Now, of course, I am a Buddhist. I'm a Buddhist nun, as you see. And so I speak from the Buddhist point of view. And that's all I know about, really. But the story, the life story of the Buddha sort of encapsulates our own path in a big, in sort of to varying degrees. When you look at the life of the Buddha, he started as a prince. Not that we are all princes and princesses, but he started and through different experiences in his life and his childhood, he encountered old age, sickness, old age, and death in various forms, observing this, experiencing this around him. And he came to this realization that there is pain, there is dukkha in Sanskrit, dukkha. And this was the beginning of his path, which he eventually, later on, then he became, from Prince Siddhartha, he became the Buddha, which we call him the awakened one, the enlightened one, the awakened one, the realized one, many different names. But so through the Buddha's path, first is observance of suffering, of dukkha. And then the path that led him out of this, that helped him to transcend this suffering, dissatisfaction. And then after that, the Buddha, he spent his life, the rest of his life, walking throughout India, teaching people how can you find inner happiness? How can you be free from suffering? What is the path that leads you to freedom from suffering? So before we can really transcend, before we can reach any form of transcendence, the Buddha said we need to understand suffering, and we need to understand the causes of suffering. Why is it that there is pain in the world? Why is it that there is all these different troubles in the world that we see now and that have always existed in varying degrees? Now we're in the 21st century, busy life, we're in the heart of London, but I think whatever age we look at, there has been loss and gain and sickness, old age, death. So there has been suffering. And if we want to transcend this, if we want to find this inner peace, we need to understand the causes of this suffering. Otherwise, it's like we try to sort of jump to the top of the ladder. We have to go step by step to get somewhere. We can't just do a long sprint to the end. So the Buddha taught these four noble truths: the truth of suffering, the truth of the causes of suffering. So the first two truths are about this fact that there is pain and dissatisfaction in the world. And then the last two truths are about the fact that it's possible to transcend suffering. So it's the truth of this transcendence, you could call it, or being free from suffering. And then the truth of the path that leads to this thing. How do we do it? How do we go about freeing ourselves from suffering? Now, there are many paths. It is not as if Buddha said, this is the only path. Like when we want to go to the top of a mountain, there are many paths leading to the top of that mountain. So again, I can only speak from the Buddhist point of view. But basically, the Buddha taught that the causes of all of this chaos, all of this we see wars, we see poverty, we see homelessness, we see loss. There are all these many different types of suffering. The cause of that is, the root of it is not knowing who we are. A certain confusion and ignorance. Confusion about the nature of the way things are. And that is what we find in the silence, in the meditation. We try to discover, we try to come to understand who we are, what is actually going on. By looking inside, we try to find this inner peace, this transcendence. So the causes of suffering, the Buddha said also, it's our selfishness, this tendency to be separate from others, and by transcending that separateness and finding our wholeness, we find also happiness. That in this constant striving for me, myself, my happiness, that we are so busy with, we are actually creating our own suffering. The Buddha taught that when we give up ourselves and our own needs and think about others, when we transcend this clinging and attachment that we have to everything to do with me and mine, and when we start to think more about others, see the importance of others, see the sameness of everyone in this shared need and shared wish for happiness, then we actually find inner peace and true happiness. And I think actually that is a view shared by most of the world religions. The language is a little bit different, the language we speak, but ultimately we try to be one, whether you call it one with God, or whether you call it clarity and emptiness, or whether you call it being awakened or being realized or understanding the nature of mind. I think that ultimately it comes to the same. It comes to that top of the mountain. We are just walking from different sides. Sometimes we can't see the paths of the others on the other side of the mountain. Maybe we meet at the top. We'll all meet at the top of the mountain. We'll get a surprise, won't we? Hello. Why did we have to have all this separation in the first place when we're all going for the same thing? Whenever there is, if we look at it, when we have strong pain, when we have strong sense of whatever, despair, loss, loneliness, depression, if we look to the root of that, we see a huge sense of me, self, me and mine. It's all about me. It's all about me and my suffering. So if we can cut straight through that, or if we can learn to transcend that, then we come to a place of us, all of us, the shared need of everyone. And we see that myself, I'm just one amongst everybody else, just one little person. I have a life of so many years at the most. But there's all these others out there. They have to be more important than me. Certainly, we ought to look at it like that. We ought to think of others more than ourselves. So this, the Buddha's teachings is his idea that through taming our mind through study, contemplation, and meditation, we come to that inner peace that transcends selfishness, and we reach a state of non-duality. You talk about non-duality. Sometimes emptiness and clarity, but emptiness doesn't sound very nice, does it? When you say emptiness in Buddhism, it means a space that is full of qualities. But it means that vastness of everything that allows us to be here. Like the space where all the clouds appear and dissolve back into space again. I loved Richard Carter's meditations. They were so beautiful, and they were actually very much similar to what we use in Buddhism. This whole idea that we tend to identify with the thoughts rather than with the vastness of who we really are. So just like the clouds in the space, we say, I am not who I think I am. I am not all these thoughts and all these complications. I am the vastness of that space, like where the clouds appear in space and dissolve back into space. So emptiness has this idea of being full of qualities. The Buddha had the richness of the qualities of wisdom and compassion, of knowing and understanding the suffering of others. How am I doing for time?
You're doing fine.
Yeah, doing fine. Yeah. So in Tibetan, the word Buddha, well, Sanskrit, Buddha is actually Sanskrit, but it was translated into Tibetan as Sangye. And Sang means purify, to purify. And Je means to blossom or to expand or to fully embrace. And you could say that's what the idea of understanding the nature of mind, finding inner peace, transcending this suffering, you could say that's what it means to, when everything that needs to be purified has been purified, and that is all our selfishness, habitual patterns, our grasping, our aversion, our confusion, jealousy, pride, all the negative emotions, when all of that has been purified, and when all of the potential that we have has blossomed, all the good qualities, generosity, kindness, patience, compassion, tolerance, right conduct, ethics, when all of that has blossomed to its full, that potential that we all have, then we are a Buddha. Then we have transcended. Then we are where we need to be, where we want to be. Then we have inner peace. And then we are able to perhaps do something, bring a little bit of peace to others as well. And I think that's where we would all like to be. So I think I will leave it there, but that perhaps gives you a little bit of a view of or an idea of the Buddhist view of transcendence. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lama Zangmo.